Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Index Podcast, where the three of us come together every couple of weeks to discuss on chain data, chart crimes, and metrics that move the crypto industry. With me today, I have Denning, Chief On Chain Sleuth at Pantera Capital,
Hi.
Hildaby, Resident Data House at Dragonfly,
Hello.
and I am, of course, Boxer, the Community Powerhouse at Dune. Before we start, nothing we say here should be relied upon as legal, financial, investment tax, or even life advice. We are acting independently of our respective professional roles. So, prediction markets. Currently, Kalshi and Polymarket, of course, being the two largest prediction markets, are somehow very culturally relevant in the US. Not so much in old Europe, of course. We're still recovering from our summer vacations, but maybe then if you quickly want to give us an introduction to the cultural relevancy and kind of like why this is a relevant topic right now.
Yeah, I mean, it was very relevant 2 years ago when there was like U.S. election, right? And everybody was looking at it 1 year ago. Okay. And then it will be relevant, I think, in next year when there's a World Cup because it's all about sports betting and all these like political topics, kind of. But yeah, recently it's been quite relevant in US. I've been getting the ads on Instagram from Kaushi for like 5 times. I like take screenshots every time when I do it, and like some other different apps as well. And recently, South Park featured it in the last week's episode, talking about Kaushi and Polymarket, like named them explicitly, saying like prediction market apps are so trendy right now, and they made like very exaggerated like plots where the kids in the school are all using like the prediction app, and they made it like a very offensive plot saying like one of the kids' mom are on the being put it on the prediction app saying like if she gonna do something to Gaza or something. And then somebody, the funny part is that like actually they made some sarcasm about the regulation stuff behind it, just saying how kind of confusing and opaque it is, like who is really regulating all these things. Because one of the person wanted to call SEC, and there's this highly professional strategic advisor picked up the phone, and actually I think the person is depicting like Donald Trump Jr. who is pretty involved in crypto activity as well, was World Liberty Finance, and I think, and they SEC said, oh, we don't really control this kind of thing. It's kind of like a financial derivative, so you have to call CFTC. And then they called it. It's the same guy behind the number. And the CFTC said, "Oh no, yeah, like we don't really do anything because it's more about like the content is offensive, so you have to call FCC." So it's like the communication regulators, like who actually last week kind of banned one of the talk show hosts, Jimmy Kimmel, I think. Like, but it got like a big backlash, and people got him back. But anyway, like it was a pretty funny plot, but yeah, I think it's very relevant right now in the market. Just seeing how Kaushi is taking a lot of like market share over Polymarket. One of the June dashboard actually reported about it. I actually can like pull it up really quickly right now, just to show. There's this account. It's called June Data. I believe it's just a.
Yeah, we do not endorse this person. If you're listening to this, please rename your account. Please reach out to us.
Right. So I believe it also put like a Kaushi refer link here, but it's a very actually helpful dashboards where it put up Polymarket, Kaushi, and Limitless, and another one called a Miride. And I believe there is definitely more than just these few prediction markets, but from just this chart, it looks like Polymarket has been dominating if you're looking at notional volume up until starting from beginning of this year. Kaushi really has been taking up the market share if you're just like looking at this pie. And now Kaushi has more volume than Polymarket in the last few weeks. This chart is showing Kaushi is having 63% of the market share, comparing with just these four players. But yeah, I think like looking at the volume might be a chart crimes. There is also open interest data. Doesn't seem very reliable here, but also one thing to point it out is that just looking at this dashboards, you would think Kaushi is like a prediction market on blockchain, but it's not true actually. If you click into the query, you realize that all the Kaushi data are uploaded periodically somehow, probably into June. So just to make the difference, like Polymarket is actually a order book based prediction market with off-chain order book and on-chain settlement. But Kalshi is not crypto yet. They are crypto friendly. I believe they're like thinking about like USDC deposit and some other stuff. But yeah, so just make that difference there.
Yeah,
So yeah,
maybe let's double click on that real quick, because I think it's like highly relevant to like the discussion around these two platforms actually, because like Polymarket, like I think decentralized, like or like how do we want to approach this conversation? Prediction markets are interesting because they can be arbiters of truth in like uncertain times where it's like nobody knows what the fuck is going on anymore. The news lie to you, everyone lies to you. Like it's like very hard to find out like the actual ground level truth, right? And then we have Polymarket on one side where literally everyone from anywhere can participate in these markets, because it's just like it's USDC on Polygon, and like you don't need to sign up with the Google account, you don't need to sign up with GitHub, you don't need to send them your passport, you don't need to do anything. Like Polymarket is as permissionless as it gets. It even like, we'll get to this later, but there's not even fees at the moment. So like literally Polymarket is just like, it's a platform on which people are hosting these decentralized bets, or like it's a decentralized prediction market, and like participants from all over the world can like participate in there anonymously. So that's like Polymarket on the one hand, and then Kalshi on the other side is like, you need to send them your passport. This is a completely KYC. This is just a database that like lives in the AWS cloud or whatever, wherever. Like this is not a decentralized service. This is a prediction market, but it's not a prediction market in the crypto ethos. So like I think that's like a very, very important distinction here, and like also kind of like informs the truth finding mechanisms of all of these platforms. I think like, I don't know, like I would
The,
trust Polymarket a lot more, because like it is so free and open, and like the market just regulates it.
but I feel like
there's more
you.
as well. There's another big difference in that Kalshi was first to get a license to be able to have U.S. residents use the platform, whereas Polymarket has users all across the globe. And oh, by the way, I need to disclose that Dragonfly is an investor in Polymarket. So yeah, I'm biased, I guess. But yeah, I think yeah, there's a lot more differences than it seems on the surface, and it's a lot harder, I think, to find data for Kalshi because you need to essentially trust their API. Whereas Polymarket is just looking at Polygon data.
Well, I feel like you guys are very crypto native and like kind of framed it in a way that's like, like if you're on chain, you're good. But like I think like Kaushi compared to Polymarket, they're actually the first one had like the CFTC license called
Yeah,
DCM license where you're allowed to have like event based contracts. But like Polymarket actually initially didn't, and they had like a settlement with CFTC. And after that, I think recently they announced that they were trying to acquire one of this license, and it's ridiculous. Like I believe there's two licenses. One is called DCM, the other one called DCO, which is like the one you are allowed to. The first one allows you to put on contracts so people can trade as an exchange. The other one allows you to clear the contracts, and so clearing license. And each of them are like 40, $50 million. And imagining if you're an investor for this like projects, like a large amount of funds are just going to be used for acquiring a license in the beginning. It's ridiculous. And like Polymarket recently did another approach by acquiring another basically like sports betting project to get these license through them with Aquahire Equity. It's public info. So but back to the debate, I think like the data, even though it's not on chain, you actually report to some public services. Yeah, and it's like regulated, right? So it's kind of like you have a filing towards CFTC. So yeah, but for
yeah.
sure you
I
can
mean,
argue.
but
Yeah.
those licenses are why Polymarket wasn't allowed to operate in the US, and I believe is starting to be able to. Whereas Kalshi was from the get go, so that was the main difference. But I mean, you can't lie on the blockchain. Like it's not. I mean, that's the whole point of it. Is it's a source of truth once it's posted there, so you can see volume, open interest. You could see all
But
this.
you can
Uh,
manipulate on the blockchain very easily though.
Yeah, yeah,
because
sure.
Exactly.
frankly, because it is anonymous. But
But, but you can
What?
manipulate on any platform and centralize even more.
If you're
Yeah, but then
regulated,
like passports would be associated with that, like with that thing.
Oh, you mean
And
like
here
user
it's just
count?
like
Yeah, yeah,
addresses.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but user count is not relevant, I don't think. I think it's more
No, no,
about
no,
open
no, no.
interest
Like
in
not
general.
user count. Like imagine a scenario where I don't know how much money has Polymarket raised. Like a gazillion dollars at this point. Like I don't know. I think like 200 million or something was the last round. So like they could literally now take 100 million of that money, distribute it to like 10,000 wallets, and just kind of like keep this floating around Polymarket as open interest, while like literally losing nothing. Like of course, like some engineer needs to manage this or whatever, but like you could theoretically just manipulate those numbers because like there's no like how would anyone ever prove that this is I mean, if it was Polymarket themselves, it would kind of like there would be a trace of funds somehow, but in the end it's like because Kalshi has like the passports and like the data is a lot more verifiable because there's like actual people who will kind of like have done something wrong and who could be like convicted for something. So like I don't know. I don't know.
But then that's assuming that all KYC platforms have no malicious activity, which I don't believe is even remotely true. I think there's malicious activity all over the place. Because I mean, if you're good enough, it's
I think
like it's doable. If you know what you're doing, if you actually know how to get around the regulations and stuff, and know what you're looking for. So I don't think it's necessarily
well,
um,
I think
less
like
gameable.
those like markets themselves, if they're regulated, they probably are not doing malicious things because if they get caught, they are regulated by law. But as you mentioned, I'm sure there are like professional players that's like probably like almost like an MEV taker, right? Like just like taking the orders in the last very minute, and like probably, like most of the people who are doing gambling or like sports betting are losing money, but there are probably like small chunk of people who are making money because they have some advantage information and somehow. So, sure, but to put it back, I think like yes, it's probably easier for you to anonymously maybe farming or like making accounts and like making new prediction markets easily on like a platform that is not KYC'd, but also because the data is transparent, it's possible for us to catch it, right? So it's more, like publicly presented, and you are possibly able to filter those out.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, why would you put your money at stake when someone can take the opposite side of the market and essentially make you lose that money if you're trying to game the market? Like, I'm trying to understand what is the perspective from which people would fake this volume. Is there like a potential airdrop? I guess probably. Is there a
No,
potential
the thing is, you can
like?
just open a position on both sides of the market if it's anonymous.
Yeah, fair.
You can
Yeah,
literally
yeah.
just go on poly. Like I do suspect that like quite a few people are actually farming the Polymarket airdrop or like a potential Polymarket airdrop in this way, where they're just literally like they have account A and account B, and they literally go into the order book. They buy 45 or like they buy shares of A for 45 cents, and they buy the yes shares. And maybe like we should actually quickly explain like how prediction markets actually work. Um,
Yes, please.
yeah, maybe
You
I've
want
written I've written a piece on prediction markets a while ago, so I can quickly share my screen here.
Okay, let's say you and I want to farm on Kalshi. You could take one side, I take the other side, and we share the profits. And then,
Yeah, but like that's a
like,
lot more. That's a lot more effort. That's a lot harder to do. For like you would need to have
is
two
it?
people that coordinate and like I don't know, kind of expose themselves to a downside because like I think that actually is that illegal? I mean, it might at least be against the terms of service of the platform, which it probably also is for Polymarket, but on Polymarket it's way harder to prove. And like there's no like they don't have the user's ID either, so it's like who would they even sue if like any damages arise from that or something. But maybe let's quickly so this basically piece that I wrote on the US election, not super relevant here, but I might come back to this in a second. So just kind of introducing that. So how do polymarket markets work? I actually wrote Polygon. That's pretty bad. The Polymarket operates in two markets. So one is kind of a binary outcome. So yes, no. So one of the questions at the time was like, will Biden finish his presidential term? And it's like there's a yes and there's a no. So and then if kind of like if people think that he will finish his term, they will buy yes shares. And then eventually kind of like it's pretty simple, like we can kind of simulate this just between us. If like let's say we will now bet on, I don't know, Trump finishes his term, and kind of like I say no and you both say yes, and then we're just like, okay, let's say we all bet $5,000, and then like suddenly like the odds for like the winnings for you guys would just be whatever I put in, but the winning for me would be what you guys put in. So it's like in that way, kind of like the quotes would even themselves out, and kind of like your shares would be worth a lot less than my shares, like the theoretical shares of this market that we would create. So I think there would be 15,000 in total. So like your shares would be worth 33 cents, no, 66 cents, and they would resolve to 100 cents if you win. And then my shares would only be worth 33 cents. So like if I come back in 3 days and I'm like, hey, actually I'm really convinced that this is actually true, and then I put another $5,000 in, and then I would just equal the market out. So like suddenly it's like both on the no side and on the yes side, we would have $10,000 staked, and then kind of the market would just even out, and all the shares would be worth 50 cents. So but like essentially like it's kind of a scale that just moves as like more people bid on one side or the other side. So yeah, that's a binary market. So like as kind of like the market tends towards its end, so like one day before Biden's presidency ended, it's like of course the price will move closer to 99 cents. So like the essentially it's always a share that moves, the price moves between 0 cents and 100 cents, and as the market resolves, it just kind of like the winning side resolves to 100 cents and the losing side resolves to 0 cents. So then like that's pretty much, that's the binary outcome, and like that's pretty simple, and like pretty fairly straightforward to understand. There's also for the viewers, I'm throwing up a chart here real quick which just shows the will Biden finish his term and the odds over time. So you can see as the term kind of like draws closer to an end, the yes side is worth 88 cents when I took the screenshot, and eventually this actually resolved to 100 cents. So that's pretty straightforward. But then there's also a kind of like a multimodal outcome, like an election. And now throwing up a chart of like, okay, here's all the different presidential election candidates. So I don't know, there's like Gavin Newsom in there, or Joe Biden, or Nikki Haley, or Vivek Rama, whatever. I'm sorry for not having the full name. But Bernie Sanders, Hillary Clinton, and so on and so on. So all the people on Polymarket, or like that the Polymarket market creator was like, okay, theoretically these could be president during the cycle, and they were options that people could bet on. And so now how this works, because like this is kind of like hard to model in your head, but I'll try my best to explain this really quickly. So if I buy a yes Trump, that automatically means that I've bet no on all the other candidates. And in this way, the kind of like there's like a, I don't know, like a multi-dimensional scale that like keeps track of all of this. But essentially, like if I buy yes Trump, I buy no Hillary Clinton, I buy no Kanye, no AOC, no to all of these other candidates. And in that way, kind of like traders can arbitrage between like the different markets. So there's always like a yes option and a no option. So there's a yes Trump option and there's a no Trump option. And then so with the yes Trump option, I say no to everything else, and with the no Trump option, I basically say yes to everything else. So like in that way, like all of these markets are connected, because in the end you can kind of like always make a formula of like yes Trump equals no to everything else. And then if we kind of double click on the other things, it's like no to everything else means yes to means yes to like one candidate.
Yeah.
And like in that way, like everything kind of equals out. So with that out of the way, with the basic understanding, of course the presidential election market was a kind of like a negative risk market. And then like fundamentally it's people like betting on things, and in that manner it's like the volume doesn't matter as much as the open interest of this market. So if we want to look at like what is happening on Polymarket today, oh, go
What
ahead,
does
Danny.
open interest mean, first of all?
So open interest. If we think back to our example earlier of like, will Trump finish his term, and we all bet $5,000, then the open interest is $15,000. So $15,000 are kind of like bet on the outcome of this market.
Right. Like the
And
TVL of the pool, kind of.
yeah, exactly. Or like, I don't know, open interest, I think traditionally is used in like perp dexes and stuff like that as well, where it's like, okay, that many people are currently kind of like speculating on contracts of, I don't know, how does the price of Bitcoin develop over the last or over the next, I don't know, like depends on whatever security or future you're betting on. But so I oftentimes, and especially at this moment in time when I wrote this article, everyone was like raving about the volume. The volume does not matter, especially for Polymarket, because on Polymarket there's no fees for trading. You can go on Polymarket today and like you can bet on something, and the trading fees are zero. So like the volume is very easily fakeable. There's also like, of course, the usual kind of like noise of airdrop farmers, and I don't know. It's just like volume doesn't really like compute for me to be like a good metric to look at prediction markets as a whole. Of course, like for individual markets, you can kind of like gauge interest in that market, and like how many people are active in that market, and so on and so on, for the volume. But I think overall the success of prediction markets you should measure in open interest, because that's like, okay, how many people are currently like have invested money into like whatever is happening. And I think specifically like for like these, for the election, this is like a long-term thing, right? Like maybe people already started buying like shares of, I don't know, for the presidential election all the way back. And if we look at this graph, I'm now throwing a graph up, which is the Polymarket open interest by market, and kind of like from January 2024 till November 2024, in which I wrote this presentation. So we can see that the big blue bar at the bottom is the presidential election. People all the way back in like even August 2024, they already started betting. So there was already 40 million of open interest in August 2024. And then kind of in October, we already reached 100 million. And then of course, as the election drew closer, so November or something, we finally kind of peaked out at 250 million. And then I think like in the week after this, it might have even peaked out, or like completely peaked out at 300 million or something like this. But so I think that like provides a way better and more accurate view to look at prediction markets, because it's like, I'm not going to actively trade anymore. Like I just set this bet and then I kind of forget about it. I have it in my head and I'm like, okay, I follow politics. So like I kind of like still like mentally track this, but it's like, it's kind of like looking at the deposit and lending, or like, this is a very nerdy example, but like looking at the withdrawal and deposit volume of lending markets doesn't really tell you much about lending markets, right? Because like in the best case, you kind of like deposit your money and then you just forget about it. So like that, just as a little side rant. But yeah, so volume of course kind of matters for like the interest and so on and so on. But in the end, it's like the open interest is what really matters and what really also moves this market. But yeah, maybe let me stop there and see where we want to go from here.
Yeah, I mean, I think I resonate with what you're saying. I think Hasib had a good tweet last week or 2 weeks ago, because I mean, it's not directly related, but like PerpDex has similar set of metrics, and people were basically saying like, hey, this one has so much volume, but as you just pointed out, if you think about like the money is so easy to move using just crypto and stablecoin, the capital has a cost. There's a capital cost, because if you don't put the money here, you can make money elsewhere. But the volume really doesn't have a cost, given especially like Polymarket doesn't charge a fee. So you would probably care more about like the ratio between volume divided by open interest and using that as an index of how real the volume is. I think that applies here for at least Polymarket. But I think like the moment any prediction market has a fee, then it's a different story because now you do have a cost. Yeah. And I think that that topic actually, like, I don't know if Dobby you have anything to insert here, but otherwise, I think we can talk about how do these prediction market make money.
Yeah, so I was looking at open interest from the same dashboard on Dune by this Dune data guy that doesn't work for Dune, and the it piqued my interest because there's two major peaks. So there's on the one on the left, yeah, on the blue side, you can see that Polymarket had a big drop off in the post election when the market resolved, which makes sense. And then there's one in March for Kalshi where it lost like almost over 4/5 of its open interest, which is pretty significant. And looking into it, I saw that it's maybe due to state regulations that essentially said, "Can you stop having sports and election betting because it goes against local rules?" But yeah, I was wondering if you guys has more information on this because it looks fairly significant.
I don't really have more information, but this is insane. Like, I recently heard for the first time that Kalshi like crossed Polymarket's open interest, and I was like, okay, interesting. But like, apparently, Kalshi was really, really ahead of Polymarket for a long time, and then they got kind of taken aback by regulations, even though they are technically the regulated one of the two. So maybe this is just a return to the norm now of Kalshi is returning and the team has always been out executing or something.
So actually, I think there was like a news out there saying like the New Jersey state basically banned Kaoshi in March 2025. So I think that kind of matches with that.
Yeah,
I'm not sure if it's directly linked with this thing. I've heard that like a lot of these states are banning sweepstakes model trading prediction market, but okay, from a quick ChatGPT googling, it looks like basically they issued a cease and desist orders against Kaushi over its sports event contracts, claiming that this essentially mirroring sports wagering and violating state law, and
Hmm.
that's it basically looks like why it caused the drop.
Okay. So they were already really successful with sports betting.
yeah, it seems.
Okay. Interesting.
So do we think like the drop, like half of their volume are all New Jersey residents betting?
I think there was also I'm seeing like Nevada and Ohio and maybe others, but I'm not super confident in my in what I'm saying.
Right.
Maybe
So
that's what they
that's
were
what I'm reading.
launching this out of. Like maybe you did. Maybe it's not New Jersey residents, but Kalshi was operating out of New Jersey, and then they like that kind
No,
of
no,
like
I think it's residents because it's like state
It's
laws
resident.
where the residents in each state has
Yeah,
to
yeah.
abide by,
Okay.
not just national laws.
Yeah, yeah. So there's Arizona, Illinois, Maryland, Nevada, Ohio, Montana as well, I guess.
okay. So we guess that those are wait, and then the other I guess those were like the only ones where this was actually allowed. Then
That were sorry.
What
this
do you
these
mean?
were the only ones in which Kalshi was officially regulated, and the other ones were all, like you couldn't do this in whatever Nebraska or something.
I think it's the whole of the U.S. originally.
Yeah, I think if you have the license, you should be able to
Yeah,
operate
Hmm.
across US.
yeah. But this is about state laws where
But then why the giant drop?
because
Like if it's
Because of
only if it's only a
state.
few states, I mean Nevada and I
I
I
don't
guess they
know.
were
mean,
notable in volume. I don't know. It's
It
interesting
seems
to
Nevada
see.
has
seems
Las
odd.
Vegas, so
Yeah, but like how many people are in Las Vegas? I don't know. I think is there also like in Germany there's always like a um like if there's gambling advertisements, it basically says like, oh, you can only do this from one of the 15 states. But then people still register like even if they're not in those states. So maybe there's like that kind of arbitrage going on. Might that be a thing?
I think it's more because of the concentration of the type, maybe. It's like sports betting has always been the main source of its open interest or markets volume. So possibly those states did, consist a lot of the volume there.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, might be. I wouldn't know. So yeah, I don't think we'll resolve that. But anyways, interesting to kind of see that Kalshi once was ahead already, and now they're just kind of like getting there again. I think maybe we should quickly talk about, like, I think we've already quickly touched on this, of like what is like the actual open interest, like what does it consist of, and our friends at Blockworks, of course, they have a chart on this. So let me quickly. Oh, can I not share my screen again? What the hell? Oh, there we go. So they have categorized the open interest by the different categories. So we see that politics open interest. So this is things like, I don't know, probably like, what's the most popular right now? Like the Ukraine war, or like, I'm so out of politics. But anything that's related to politics is 53 million, and that is 37% of the open interest of Polymarket right now. And then kind of like crypto meta bets, so things like, will Ripple reach $4 in March, or $4 in September, or something like this.
Will it?
Sorry.
Will it?
Will it? I don't know. Hopefully not. Or maybe hopefully. I don't know. Culture. I think this might be things like, I don't know. Will Sam Bankman-Fried be released from jail in 2025 or 2026 or anything like that? Sports is only 9.2 million, which I think, like, in stark contrast to Kalshi, which probably is like most of their business is actually sport. Maybe, Danning, what kind of advertisements are you getting for Kalshi? Like, what do they want you to bet on?
I think sports, yeah.
Okay.
Wait, because I think this comes from the fact that you can bet on sports outside of the US. Like there's a bunch of platforms. There's, I don't know, BetClick and stuff like this are fairly well spread out here in France. So obviously there's not much need for an incumbent to come in and swallow the market. Whereas in the US it's a lot harder, and hence Kalshi is kind of the one of the first ones to actually allow for this. So it does make sense for this to be a huge part of the market share. But it does make for the two platforms kind of cater to very different types of bettors, I guess. Yeah, so it's interesting dynamics.
Actually, correct myself. I just looked at the screenshots I got. It wasn't sports, but it's a screenshot of a prediction market asking, will the Democratic NYC major nominee this year be this person?
Mm.
And I don't know why they even like targeted me with this, but maybe I had an old address that I lived in New York, and but I mean, again, like
You can
I
also
Don't dox
just
yourself.
bet
Don't
on.
dox.
I mean, you can also just bet on the New York mayor
sure.
election. Like, it's like a very contentious cultural thing at the moment
Yeah.
as well, I think
But
so.
again, knowing how all these like consumer app are promoting themselves on ads, they probably have like 5,000 different type of like ads content,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
different type of screenshots
yeah.
targeting
That
for,
would make sense.
and the algorithm finds the finest.
Yeah.
But we should also talk about how do these prediction market make money, because that's being a puzzle for all the data wizards. And basically, I think like with all these topics are so hot, nobody can find out like how much prediction like Polymarket makes money, and I think the answer is zero. And they listed it on their website saying like they don't do taker fee. So like how do usually these markets make money? From what I collected, you can charge a fee on deposit, but most of these ones we're talking about are not really. You may have a fee if you're on ramping through like MoonPay or something, but they're not charging fee. But most of these charges a taker fee on the markets, I guess. You call it VIG, and I think that's why there's another one called no VIG, is saying like they're not charging any taker fee. So basically, as the example you laid out earlier about us predicting the prediction of the president, if we lose the bets, you will get back your own money. You'll get our money minus the VIG, and that money goes to the basically the middle, I guess, like the platform. Um, yeah, and I think like
Like, when you
Kaoshi
say Vic, what do you mean?
VIG is basically the taker fee that the platform is taking. Like if they take 5%, then
Ah,
5% times the loser's debate bet it will become the taker fee for the platform.
Okay, so if it resolves to 100 cents, and then I basically get my 100 cents and then minus the taker fee, whatever
Yeah.
Kalshi takes.
Yeah, or your 10K times the 5% is the taker fee.
Well, wait, is it only on cash out, like the final resolve of the market, or is it also like if I trade in between?
I believe it's when the settlements,
Only on settlement.
I can't speak accuracy of it, but
That would be.
okay.
Wait, let me. But it would kind of make sense, to be honest. I
So
mean, actually, no. They would kind of, because like what oftentimes happens at the end of if the price already like is like close to, if the market is about to close down, the price oftentimes is 99 cents, and then people, like some people will just kind of arbitrage this, and they will put orders into the book at 99 cents, and then some people are just impatient and they just cash out for 99 cents. So like if it's like 5 hours until Biden's presidency finishes and I just want my liquidity right now, I might just sell my shares for 99 cents. But then Kalshi or Polymarket, if they use this kind of like settlement only thing, that wouldn't work for them.
Well, here Kaoshi's fee schedule said the trading fee are only charged for orders that are immediately matched with orders sitting on the order book. So I understand that as a settlement of your order. Is that right?
Yeah. These work in order. Yeah, they work in order. So this is kind of like if you do a market buy. If you just like buy an open order, then you have fees. But if it looks like basically the incentive. Yeah, exactly. With this, they're incentivizing like people to leave open orders inside of the order book, which of course provides liquidity. So like that's a good thing. So they're kind of like, this is incentivizing in the end kind of market makers to have open orders inside of the order book. So like the market's actually liquid. But on the other side, it like the retail users who just come in and buy something, those will be penalized.
Or you can be a retail that is putting up a limit order, right? You can just like list the order there.
Yeah, but come on, how many? I mean, sure enough, the sophisticated retail users will also benefit from this. But I would like if just looking at this on face value at first impression is like this is for market makers to be able to like do this easily, which makes a lot of sense. This is a good model.
Yeah, and I think like the fee varies. And also you see this is like a schedule update for September 2025. So I believe they probably is like changing the fee all the time. But the price for one contract and for 100 contracts is different. And also like depending on the price of the contract, the fee is different. And so like when your price is low and your value amount is low, the fee is insane. But like all these together, it's good that they have like a public info about how they charge fees. If you combine the data that's being reported, I believe some people, this is the best report I can find. There is this one called In Game. They reported that Kaoshi's fee revenue over 90 days was around 15 million, which translates to, I believe, like $60 million yearly revenue. You can probably do the math, like how much this company is worth. But people do complain that Kaoshi has fairly high VIG, as in like a fee taking rate. But
what's the valuation of Kalshi?
So the latest raise puts Polymarket at 1 billion valuation, but they have considered an offer that would put it at 9.
Wow, that's crazy. Wait,
this is
from offer would be.
This is from the
Kalshi.
block.
Kalshi is Paradigm.
Yeah.
Okay. I also heard that like it seems like Kalshi is moving towards Solana. There was at least some. Like Denning, you mentioned this earlier of like USDC deposits. They already accept USDC deposits from the Solana, definitely. And I think there was something about like the multi-coin. Who's the guy from Kyle Samani or whatever? Sorry for butchering that name, Kyle. He wrote something on Twitter which made it sound like Kalshi is gonna probably like move its order book towards the Solana like VM, whether that's like public Solana or that's just a like fork. Nobody knows, but it does seem kind of like this would be the right move for Kalshi to do that.
Yeah, I don't think there's any confirmation about Solana. It's more like someone asked, "Hey, is Kalshi moving on chain?"
Rumor,
and he said,
"But if Paradigm is such a big investor now, like they're probably like Paradigm is crypto only, right? I mean, they did this short pivot to AI, but I think they're back. It would seem like, I don't know, they will move this
Yeah,
towards more crypto native rails.
I would assume so as well.
But yeah, so prediction markets don't make a lot of money for what they're doing. They do make money apparently with some taker fees, but Polymarket right now makes no money. I think there's also rumors about them turning on their fee switch, or maybe it's actually already confirmed and just not implemented yet. But they historically actually they had fees at one point in time. When I was researching this data, there was like there's a fee component of some events, and it was filled in like all the way at the start, but then eventually they managed like they realized like, hey, we're just kind of like hindering our growth by having these fees already implemented. So it is very easy for them to implement them, but yeah, it's very unknown and like totally reasonable from my perspective. It's like currently you're just trying to take the market, like whoever like gains market share. Like this is very much like dependent on network effects, right? The more the more open interest you have, the more liquidity is on your platform, the more users you can draw in, the better the experience of trading is going to be, the more kind of long tail markets you can serve. So I think this is very much a kind of like winner takes most market probably, and then there's going to be like smaller prediction markets which are like niche specific in the future. But there's probably like going to be one big winner, and that's why the valuations of these are so insane. And as kind of everything in crypto, I think there's also like a element of regulatory arbitrage here, where like people just do things on crypto rails and they don't care about like the FEC, or like whatever US government agencies, like I don't know, fines me 50 million. I don't care. I make more in revenue in the future, hopefully. I feel like that's kind of like what's happening here. It's the same as Hyperliquid. Like we
There's
just don't really.
Yeah, there's markets that you're gonna find on Polymarket but can't be on Kalshi because of the regulatory
Exactly.
CFTC thing.
I like my decentralized prediction markets. I think they're great truth finding mechanisms in times of uncertainty. I think the fact that Polymarket was right about the US election while all the kind of like media talking heads were wrong proved that like Polymarket has a reason to exist, and it's like a good truth finding mechanism, and that there is like crowd intelligence can kind of work, but even though it's like not strictly crowd intelligence, it's also just like allowing markets to find information and to define information and outcomes is like can be a good idea. So I'm a big fan.
Oh,
I've been a big user of Polymarket, and like I don't know, I've even convinced some normie friends to use it. Just like we're just betting on like German politics or shit like that, and it's like genuinely just it's good entertainment, but of course if you have any gambling addiction, please seek help. It's like, you really need to keep yourself in check. Like I do like hate the gamblification of professional sports. It's horrible. Like yeah, I don't think that's like a good development for the world, but it is what it is.
I think like a few points you made earlier is making a lot of sense that like the fact that people want prediction market in this current world just means like people really lost trust in like the major media or how divided the major media is like all these like Fox News is talking about like Republicans and the other side like is talking about the other side. And remember Vice, which was like a
Mm-hmm.
very successful countercultural like news reporting from the ground up, and anybody can report a news there. It has the same problems, right? Like people can just report not true kind of information, but people really wanted to see that. And as you said, like the crowd intelligence really told the actual outcome of some prediction market. But I think like it's a self loop. It's just like not really. I don't know if it's really improving the media environment because it's also very dividing because it's always yes or no on the two ends. And like the South Park episode basically like said it. I think like people can put really extreme beliefs there and
Mm.
they're kind of dividing, and it may not be as really what the good outcome can be. And but I think I don't agree with what you were kind of alluding to, that like we should use it as the decision making, because have you heard of this word futarchy? I think it's basically somewhat as in like using a mechanism like prediction market for people to put in what they think should be as a decision-making mechanism. But I think that actually can involve a lot of like manipulation and others. So it's a question mark if you want to go that far. But that's my closing thoughts.
Yeah, I think like this topic will kind of like we will revisit this periodically over the next kind of month or years. I would assume these always like come and go in waves, and like with like historical events, political events, or like with the next US election, where I think there's like midterm, no, how are these called, like senator elections or something like this. I don't know. There's some shit. I think they're called midterm elections in the US. With that, probably like the all of these prediction markets will kind of like see a new hype, and yeah, it remains to be seen if they can actually compete with the kind of like centralized, completely like gamified and perfect sports betting apps that are already existing. Because like I think they've really like, I don't know, they're money printing machines. They have really good staff, and it's going to be really really hard to compete with them. All right. With that, this was another episode of the Index Podcast. We'll see you again in 2 weeks. Bye bye, everyone.
Crypto data wizards, come join us for the parade. From Bitcoin ETF to Solana meme coin trade, uncovering public secrets in the blockchain shade. Bad chiller, cherry picking liar. We call them out and set chart crime on fire. Index Podcast, crypto data